Are you ready to get an advantage? Good, because it's now time to get back to the edge.
30 minutes left in the program before we become Between the Sidelines, and 90 minutes before we get to My Guys in the Desert with Brent Musburger and his crew. But we have a guest at the desk, Rex Beyers, nice enough to join us before he jet sets off to a foreign country. What's up, man?
Gentlemen, always a pleasure. Good to be back. Hopefully everything's good. Happy New Year to you both.
Thank you. Your hair's getting long and kind of salt and pepper.
I have to get rid of all that. Yeah, it's salt and pepper. I should have that too. I haven't colored it in a while.
Your hair is great, man. Great. How are you going to...
when you sweat out these games like I do...
I know you sweat out games on a daily basis. It's starting to age you, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
And we were sweating out games last night at the Westgate, but it went well for us for the most part last night. Talk about Sport Radar and the new job you're going to start, which is going to take you to London, then to Spain, to Gibraltar. Where else?
But basically, how it's going to go is I'm going to end up winding up in Las Vegas. The training, that's a European-based company, and they're going to try to expand some into the United States with software and stuff. Eventually, when it's all said and done, I'll be back in Vegas in April, and ideally, wherever they start to add new states with legalization, the software gets put in there. The people that are running it probably aren't going to be quite qualified. Obviously, there's a great shortage of workers that are qualified in this business these days. You've seen some of the mistakes and the gaffes in New Jersey and Mississippi. So I think that when I would come back, my job would be to go to a place. If the people are qualified, then it would be easy for me to sit there, shake hands, have a dinner, and go home. If not, I might have to spend a couple weeks, maybe a month, to be there and kind of teach them the ins and outs of how to book, know who the wise guys are, what the limits are supposed to be, make sure you don't take correlated parlays, stuff that's basic stuff for here in Nevada and offshore. Some of these people aren't going to know some of the logistics of it. But I'll be in Gibraltar for training mostly, a week in London, a week in Austria, and a couple of days in Germany, and then back here after that.
Back in Vegas. I'm excited to see the Rock of Gibraltar.
Well, who wouldn't be? I'm actually, it's so small, the whole island. I'm going to be living in Spain and having to cross the border every day. That'll be fascinating because the airport, literally, there's a road that dissects the airport. I'll have to cross an airport runway every day to get to work, so that'll be fun.
That'll be cool. All right, so talk briefly about how many opportunities you think it'll be out there. I've been contacted by some people who listen to our shows, and they say, how can we get into the sports betting industry? And basically, you gotta, if you don't have experience, you got to find an entry-level job. But there are going to be a lot of opportunities out there in this industry, right?
I think that's the biggest thing is you have to be able to suck it up and say, listen. And that's what's going to happen to me out here. I moved to Nevada in anticipation of this law passing last year, which it did. One of the reasons I wanted to do that was because I thought I could jump in ahead of the game and not have to just start as a ticket writer. Unfortunately, not the way it works. My resume says Costa Rica, Costa Rica, Costa Rica. They don't like that. Yeah. So I was lucky to get into the job with Sport Radar. It's a little bit higher up on the scale. And like I say, if you're wanting to do this and you think that you understand and have a grasp of how sports gambling works, and you bottom line is, even if you think you know more than the people ahead of you, put your time in, suck it up at the start. You don't have to be a know-it-all. People will figure out quickly if you know what you're doing.
Follow him on Twitter at the Rex Factor 3 so he can follow your journey in foreign lands. But you're also, put on the resume, college basketball handicapper. So let's get to it because we got a lot of good games on later tonight.
Great day.
Let's start in the Big Ten, Nebraska and Maryland. Nebraska originally hung as a 1-point favorite. We've seen a flip now. Maryland laying about 2 points in most shots. There's still 1.5s out there right now. Nebraska, though, has been a great cover team, Rex. 9-2-1 against the spread thus far. They've won 4 straight since losing to Minnesota.
Yeah, the 11-2 record for Nebraska. The 2 losses, Texas Tech and Minnesota. No shame in either one of them. And I'll get to how strong the Big Ten is when we get down to that a little bit later in the Northwestern Michigan State game. But Maryland's win over Radford, 78-64 on Saturday, I think it's their best win of the year. They're 10-3, but I don't see how Maryland can lay points to them no matter where the game's played.
Interesting. All right, so how about Seton Hall? Here's a team that's been living on the edge, let's put it that way, against Kentucky, against St. John's. Now, the Pirates on the road, catching 3.5 against Xavier. What's your take on Seton Hall Xavier?
Kevin Willard's done a decent job. St. Louis lost at home was their only real bad loss. Xavier, I think their coach Trill has sort of done a good job meshing some of their talents together in the last couple of weeks. They've sort of shaped it up a little bit. They lost Blewett and McCura from last year's team, and obviously losing the coach to Louisville made it a little bit of a slow start. But they've won 7 of 9, and I think this is a pretty good spot for Xavier here. But ideally, I think 3 would be the number to lay. Anything higher than that's just a little too much.
Well, Seton Hall's putting together a pretty good resume.
They are.
Also has a road win at Maryland, so keep that in mind. This line looks a little bit cheap, but explain it here. North Carolina 16.5 over Harvard.
I can't. Harvard's 102 in the Ken Palm, and I don't understand. I think that was way too high for me. Carolina's losses were to just Michigan and Kentucky. They only played 4 games in December. They had the one good win against Gonzaga. After that, it's been Wofford and nobody else. No real opinion for me, but I couldn't really want to have either side.
All right, Rex Beyers with us. Let's go to the Big 12 then, because when I saw this originally, I thought I was missing something. It's since moved up. Texas Tech, a 3.5-point favorite at open, now up to a 4.5-point favorite over West Virginia. Kanate still out for the Mountaineers, which is huge. You have the best defensive team in the country coming to town, and they're better offensively as well. 3.5 seemed kind of short, and it's starting to make its way up.
Yeah, it looks like that, and that to me looks like it's probably about right. This is not a vintage West Virginia team. They're 8-4. One of the things that I saw here that stands out. I'm not a totals guy, and actually, when we get done here, you're going to see me sprint to that window because 136 is the only one available in town on under in this game. Texas Tech pretty much can control the pace against whoever they play. And this year, Huggins isn't trying to press with his personnel. It's not really the same press Virginia that you know from years past. I would expect this game to be pretty half-court pace, pretty low scoring, fairly dirty. I mean, it's one of those 69, 63 jobs. So I think that's at the high end of it. So under looks like my best recommendation here. I think Texas Tech probably wins a close one.
All right. Let's move on then, because Georgetown and Butler will go at it later today. Butler, a 9-point favorite, actually opened up 8.5 some spots, and the totals worked its way up from 150.5 to 151.5. Last time we saw Butler, it was being dismantled by the Florida Gators, 77-43, and now they're an 8.5-point favorite.
By the way, Butler fell behind 21-0 in this game. Yeah.
My dad is kind of a semi-Butler fan. That was a turnoff spot for him. At 21-0, he had to tap out. 9-4 this year. LaVall Jordan's done a fairly decent job, I think, for the most part. One of the things to note, they're 3-0 off a loss, and those are big wins, 55 points in those 3 losses, so 18.3 average margin of victory after that. The spot to look for against Butler is when they're on the road. The Florida loss on the road was a very bad one. They also lost at St. Louis in their only other true road game. They've got Seton Hall next Wednesday night. Circle that game on your calendars, especially if Seton Hall loses tonight or loses one of their next 2 for line value on Seton Hall against Butler at home next Wednesday.
Okay. All right, let's get back to the Big Ten and Big 12. I think you took 13 with Northwestern against Michigan State, right? Game 8-13, game 8-14.
Yeah, I did. There was one bad loss to Fresno by 19 in Fullerton, but they also lost the 2 Big Ten games against really good teams, by 2 against Michigan at home and by 2 at IU. And that was their only road game before tonight, which is a concern. Yeah. But to speak of the strength of the Big Ten, here are your RPI worst teams. Illinois or KenPom worst teams. Illinois at 110. They lost to Gonzaga by 6 on a neutral. Rutgers is 113. They won at Miami of Florida. Minnesota 62. They beat Nebraska. Those are your 3 worst teams in the league. They're just not going to be any cupcakes this year in that league. And if you're talking about cutting out some of the mid-majors, I'm sorry?
Where's Rutgers?
Rutgers 1-3. They were at Miami of Florida. They're the worst team in terms of KenPom.
Rutgers and Illinois are 2 bad teams.
They are. But
I think every other team in the Big Ten is a quality team.
I would agree. And I think if you lose to either Rutgers or Illinois, it's almost like you get your serve broken.
All right, so Rex Beyers taking 13 with Northwestern. I don't see that number out there on the screen right now. It's 12.5 pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, got it this morning.
In Vegas. How about this Texas K-State number? This has moved a little bit, Rex. K-State now 2 or 2.5 over the Longhorns in Manhattan. Dean Wade obviously still out for the Wildcats.
Big move on the total in that game. Opened 123.5 yesterday. Even the Westgate sheet had it that too. So offshore and out here, it's now 129.5 and 130. That's intriguing to me because KenPom also picked the score to be 63-60. I literally have no idea.
All right. Rex Beyers again at the Rex Factor 3 up on Twitter if you want to follow him. One more in the Big 12. Oklahoma taking on Kansas. This one opened up Kansas as an 8-point favorite, and right now we're still sitting at 8 and 8.5. Actually, it's starting to pop up here. Jayhawks bouncing back from that loss to Arizona State, beat up on Eastern Michigan, and the big part is Udoka Azubuike came back in that game, which is going to be huge against an OU team that likes to play inside.
Yeah, and Oklahoma's off to a decent start, 11-1. They had the 120-point loss to Wisconsin in the Bahamas, but all of their last 9 wins have been against KenPom teams that are 117 or higher. So they've certainly played a pretty good schedule, and that'll put them in a spot here to compete tonight. I think no play for me, but gun to head, it had to be the dog.
I was thinking the same thing. Lon Kruger's done a much better job with this team than I think most people anticipated, right? Because I thought Oklahoma was going to be a middle of the pack, maybe even bottom middle of the Big 12, and right now 11-1 after. I mean, you lose Buddy Hield and you lose Trey Young, and he's got really a more complete team now, doesn't he?
That's the way he coaches. He prefers guys that play more together as a team. They spread the ball a lot better. They space the floor a lot better on offense. You can just see last year with Young. I mean, it got to be a little uncomfortable once you got in conference play. People had him figured out.
All right, let's go to the Mountain. I'm going to throw a curveball at you. We didn't have this on the list, but Dave Koken sent me a story about New Mexico going to a zone. Paul Weir is going to try to change things up here. He's going to play a lot more zone defense. And tonight, Looks like there's been a little bit of play on New Mexico as a 2-point road favorite over Air Force. It's been a disaster for the Lobos so far.
The fascinating thing about that is if you're true in general, zones lower the number of possessions in the game.
The total is 153.
It's gotten betting up 4 points, so I'm kind of concerned about that. But they did play 2 games last year. They were both very high scoring. I think one of them, both teams got into triple digits. Right. So it'll be a fascinating watch. And certainly if what holds true with New Mexico, when they start to go to the zone and they keep with it, then it'll be something to watch going forward. After tonight, you can kind of make a pretty hard adjustment.
Yeah. We watch Air Force, too. They can skew to zone 2 a lot when they're playing defense, so that'll affect the total. Let's go to Laramie. Wyoming taking on Boise State. Hunter Maldonado still not playing for the Cowboys. Boise State opens up as a 3.5-point favorite, now up to a 4.5-point favorite. And we've seen this total drop. 141.5 was the original number, now 137.5 or 138.
Yeah, Ken Palm-wise, this looks like a kind of a mismatch. Like the number seems a little bit too cheap. Boise at 138 and Wyoming at 237. Bottom line is Wyoming's 4-9, and this is not a vintage Boise team from what we've seen some of the past few years where they've been threatening NBA or NCAA at-large bids and stuff. 5-8 this year. They lost their opener to Idaho State at home, 72-70. I don't think I want to be involved with any of this mess.
All right.
Okay. No, I don't disagree with that. How about Colorado State and UNLV? The Rebels got some betting support here, up from 8 to 9.5 at some spots. And this is a UNLV team that lost by 30 to Bucknell in Hawaii. It's also a pretty bad Rams team.
You guys are the Mountain West experts. I can say that Colorado State lost 7 of 8. UNLV's lost 5 of 7. Good luck.
Well, there is play. There is sharp play on UNLV tonight. I don't think you're going to see that too often. It's more, I think, disrespect for the Rams than respect for the Rebels. Wouldn't you say, JVT?
I would say, but I would also say that I'm not comfortable laying 8.5, 9 points with UNLV. No way whatsoever.
UNLV's best player is done for the season, by the way, Shakur Juiston, and he's trying to get a red shirt to come back next season to play for Rick Pitino in Vegas next year.
It's absolutely right. Yeah.
Okay.
How much of it is that Pitino to Las Vegas? Is there some sort of a possibility here?
There are discussions going on now. It's
every single time.
That makes so much sense now that I think about it. I mean, just hit me over the head with the brick. I mean, it's a layup. Yeah, get him out of Greece, get him out of Panathinaikos, and bring him to Las Vegas.
There's only a few people at this point who could bring UNLV basketball back from the dead, and I think Rick Pitino's one. And you can get him at half price now.
Yeah, right? From 4.5 now, or 4 to 2.5.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay, Nevada Wolfpack. Rex, I've noticed an interesting trend with this team, slow starts. You can bet against Nevada in the first half in a lot of games. Tonight laying 9.5 against Utah State up in Reno.
They better be careful. This is the best team that they're going to play this year, and I think that their best chance to lose a game will be in the season finale on March the 2nd down in Logan. Yep. The closest game I think has been 72-68 to South Dakota State. But one thing that's got me interested in this game, and now it's been bet up to 150 in a couple spots offshore and 149.5 out here. I'm going to try to weigh out 150, but go under in this game. 6 of the last 7, Nevada Reno has played to 144 or less, and Utah State has played their last 4 to 143 or less.
Nevada has not shot the ball well from 3 either, JVT. If you go back and look at this team's offensive efficiency, it's really down. I know Eric Musselman's kind of searching for answers because we thought Nevada was going to be a much better offensive team than it has been to this point.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the reason why you've seen them sometimes. They fall in love with a three-point shot even though they don't shoot it that well. I think they're 35% as a team from beyond the arc, and they shoot themselves into those holes at the beginning of games.
I think it's a troubling trend, especially when you don't lose. I mean, if they can get a loss at some point, maybe it's a wake-up call. But when you continue to find a way to eke out games, and at some point they're going to get it. But you guys have mentioned, I'm sure, in the past that the Mountain West is very poor this year. I mean, basically the Pac-10's bad, the Mountain West is bad. The West Coast is probably as good as it's been in a long time. You're going to make an argument the West Coast could get 3 teams in this year.
West Coast Conference.
Yeah, but
you are correct. I was looking at this too, and our mutual friend Matt Lindeman put up a prop at Caesars, right, on Nevada's undefeated season.
Good on him.
And you think the most likely spot, and I agree with you, for Nevada to lose is at Utah State on March 2nd.
It is, and I think, like I said, if they start slow tonight, they'll be in a dogfight. This team's not bad. I mean, it's like I said, it's a down conference. They're probably the second best team in it.
I'm a little interested in this game. Utah State. Nevada's been a really slow-starting team.
Yep.
And I think Utah State in the first half might be a play tonight. It's something I'm looking at as well. Maybe split it up first half unit on the first half unit on the game. JVT, now there are other spots in the Mountain West where you think the Wolfpack might get tripped up. How about at Fresno State January 12th? Justin Hudson's got that team playing well.
Yeah.
Nevada could lose at Fresno State. And I also believe Nevada could lose maybe in a spot like at Wyoming on February 16th.
Yeah, Wyoming is one that we brought up earlier that we were talking about. They had a wild game there last year, double overtime, over 100 points for each. Fresno State's going to be one, too. They're a top 50 team defensive efficiency. And to your point, Rex, about Utah State, 39th in KenPom in adjusted defensive efficiency. So, and I think they hold teams like 39% in terms of 2-point shooting. So, like, they're going to be a very tough out both times they play them.
My gut tells me that they've phonied this total up a little bit. I would expect some movement towards the under. I probably won't get the 150, and if I miss the 149.5, I'll take 149 or better. But under's the recommendation here.
Gotcha. How much do you use KenPom in your handicapping?
A lot more than I did last year. A couple of friends of mine have kind of alerted me to some of the stuff to you. There's all kinds of stuff when you pay the subscriber fee. You can get sort of in the back and look at some of the metrics. And JVT, I think, was really good last year in terms of talking about some of the stuff on the air that I didn't have a clue about. I mean, I'm sure he knows more about it than me. I'm still trying to learn. I'm a little bit, I would say, nascent in my knowledge of exactly how to use that site. There's a lot going on there. It's
a really solid site. And actually, the best nugget about it was I had no idea Ken Pomeroy was a weatherman before he started this.
Yeah, he was. I think when Wyoming or something like that, he was just bored. He's like, I'm just going to start figuring out how basketball games are actually played out, not just what the final score is. And it's comical. He's so good that the lines now, if you look at his projected scores every day, that's what the line is. The book makes no work.
What it is.
It's interesting. All right, Rex Beyers, follow him on Twitter at the Rex Factor 3, and good luck in Gibraltar, man. I guess we'll see you in about 4 months.
I'll be back, gents.
Picture on top of the rock. Huh?
I'll get one. Tweet it out
at the Rex Factor 3. We'll take a break, come back, Bankroll Challenge, wrap it up before we get to Between the Sidelines.
It's The Edge, broadcasting exclusively on the Vegas Stats and Information Network. Listen to the show on SiriusXM Channel 204 or watch at VSiN.com.